Okay, hello, hello. I'm just letting a couple of ladies into the room and I'm going to get started. Today, we are going to be chit-chatting about sleep. And we're going to be talking about why we need to sleep. We're going to talk about what like an ideal sleep of night looks like. And we're going to start to dive into what we can do to improve our sleep. And I'm excited to share this one with everyone today. You may or may not know this, depending on how long you've been inside the group, but I started an intensive course on stress management and sleep back in November, which I have almost completed. I still have like a couple of modules and a case study to do, but I am almost done with this very comprehensive course on sleep and stress. And so you're going to start to hear me talk a lot more about both of them inside this group because I do believe that both of them are just as important as exercise and nutrition when it comes to our health, when it comes to our energy levels, obviously the sleep, when it comes to weight management, it's both of them are really, really important. And I've got some fun slides to show you guys today. We're going to start by going over, and I'm just going to make sure that I'm going live in the group because I always am nervous that I'm in the wrong place, but nope, I'm there. All right, perfect. So before I get going, I'm also going to let me just pull up my notes here. So before I get going, so what I want to start with is just explaining why sleep is important. And then we're going to talk about how to improve it. But first, we're going to talk about why, because process and scientists in full, whoops, got a couple more. Oh, my goodness. Back here. Whoopsie. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that, ladies. I think my internet. I have to go tell my husband to stop streaming. Okay, we'll see how it goes. Okay, so what I was saying is that basically, again, sleep is very complex and a lot of like scientists don't fully understand what exactly happens, but we know that it's essential for us to function properly. And we know that almost every single biological function is influenced by sleep. So sleep improves our mood and it gives us our ability to manage our emotions, right? And think back to like a toddler that doesn't get a good night's sleep and then what you have to deal with the next day, right? Sleep also makes us less impulsive, which in turn helps us make better decisions. This is really important, especially for women wanting to lose weight. This is one of the main reasons that I think sleep is so key. Sleeping, obviously, it helps with our brain function. So it helps us learn, it helps us remember, it helps with cognition, concentration, attention. So it keeps our brains healthy, right? So for all the women going through perimenopause and menopause who have started to notice, like, like you're forgetful, you can't find your keys, you can't remember things. Sleep, 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 sleep. Sleep helps us lose fat and build lean muscle. Okay, this is really important. It helps us lose fat and build lean muscle. It is one of those things that is just as important as making sure that you're not eating processed foods. But we don't really necessarily think about sleep, right? When we go on, when we start like a weight loss protocol. It helps us repair tissues. It is also very, very key for regulating our blood sugar levels, right? So, and this is something I talk about a lot inside this group. We need blood sugar management. Once again, if you want good energy and if you want to be able to manage your weight, it starts with blood sugar management. That is like super, super key. Just making sure that we're not on a roller coaster ride of having ups and downs, and sleep is going to be key to that. Sleep will have a massive impact on our hormones. In particular, it's going to have a massive impact on cortisol and growth hormone and insulin. 3 of the hormones that I always talk about when it comes to weight management. Sleep is also going to help us regulate our hunger, our appetite. It's going to help us feel more satiated. It'll help us make better food decisions, more wise decisions, eat the right amount, and eliminate cravings. So it has a lot of different roles. And it also detoxification, and detoxification is another key element to weight management and energy. Like if you have a body that is very toxic, you're going to be fatigued all the time, and you're going to struggle with weight loss. Okay. So a good night's sleep is going to give you all of that. But on the flip side, if you're not getting a good sleep, then you're going to have poor moods. You're going to have an inability to handle your emotions. You're going to have a harder time learning, a harder time concentrating. You'll probably end up with metabolic dysfunctions, higher blood sugar levels, excess body fat, less muscle, less recovery, a weakened immune system, hormonal imbalances, more hunger, a hard time controlling your appetite, your cravings, more toxic, like a bigger toxic load, and potentially chronic conditions, including cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and cancer. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys a little diagram. I've got lots of little fun diagrams for you today, and I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to blow this up. And this is kind of showing you what are the consequences of a bad night's sleep. Okay, so I've kind of gone over these. So there's the emotional responses. So again, exhaustion, increased irritability, mood fluctuations, depressed mood. A lot of women in perimenopause and menopause complain about their mood. A lot of women in perimenopause and menopause complain about not getting enough sleep. So there may be a correlation there. Yes, your hormones are partially, at fault, but I think that we need to start thinking about how potentially our sleep is also having an impact. This is a really big one here. How basically you have to think about sleep as a stressor on your body. And when there's a lot of stress on your body, it can have an effect on your HPA axis or your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal. This is what we call adrenal fatigue. So adrenal fatigue causes insomnia. Insomnia causes adrenal fatigue. So that's a really big one. And then we kind of talked about the mental and the cognitive already. And again, this how you're going to have a much harder time focusing and concentrating. And then finally, this last one down here, this is like that physical somatic response. So this is where I said, like, there's more to it than just like being in a bad mood and feeling tired and not being able to focus, right? So this is like, again, metabolic dysfunctions, cardiovascular disease, risk of cancer, type 2 diabetes. These are all possible consequences of not getting a good night's sleep. So really, this is a super important topic, okay? Now, that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to like drill you guys too long about the importance of sleep, but I am going to quickly go over just, what influences our need to sleep as well as our ability to sleep. Because there's so many different things that are going to influence it. Some of them you may know, some of them you may not. So number one, aging and life phases. So just aging in general, unfortunately, it's going to make sleep a little bit harder. We tend to take a longer time to fall asleep as we age, and we tend to wake up more often after we have fallen asleep. This is just part of the aging process. Environmental factors are going to have a massive impact on your sleep. So this could be, depending on where you are, maybe you live right next to a noisy highway, or maybe your dog walks around your house and comes into your room all night, or maybe, maybe it's too hot in your room. Maybe you have no control over the heat, but your environment is going to have a massive impact. Your lifestyle obviously is also, whoops, I'm going to just mute somebody who's joined. I'm just going to mute, and then I'm going to go back to that. Okay. So your lifestyle, right? So this can be like some of the more common ones. Shift work has a massive impact on sleep. Travel. So if you travel a lot for work, if you're crossing different time zones, or you're staying in hotels, stress. And stress is another massive one, which is another lifestyle sort of component. So those are sort of like the three main ones. Biological sex is going to have an impact on it, right? So especially, well, we know perimenopause, menopause, that in and of itself, women are going to have a harder time. Like your socio-cultural environment. So where you live, right? Like some people live in very crowded spaces. Some people have big mansions in the middle of the forest. This is going to have an impact. Our hormones are going to have a massive impact. We're going to dive into that a little bit today. So I won't go too much into it there. Genetics and something called chronotypes, which again, I'm not going to dive into, but everyone has a chronotype, which is sort of, you can think of it as your tendency for sleep. And then circadian rhythm, which we're going to be talking about today, which is sort of like this natural 24-hour cycle that your body follows. And this is an important one, and it's what we're going to talk about next, which is your thoughts on sleep. Okay. So here's something that I learned a long time ago when I was studying with precision nutrition that has stayed with me. And again, I don't know if you guys know this, but I've talked about it before. I used to be an insomniac. I spent about 7 years of my life struggling to sleep, tired all the time, couldn't fall asleep, would finally fall asleep, would wake up in the middle of the night, would stare at the ceiling, would wake up in the morning and have to drag myself out of bed and spend the day like with my eyes like just wanting to shut. I did that for 7 years. I have been studying sleep for 10 years now. I did everything I could to try and figure out my sleep. So it's definitely a topic that I understand quite well. And what I learned from precision nutrition, and this is going to be a game changer, and this is something that I want you to all remember, is that when it comes to sleep, you cannot control the quality of your sleep. You cannot go to bed and will your body to go to sleep. The only thing that you can control are the things that you do to create a good sleep environment. Okay, that is all you can do. And today we're going to be talking about 3 things. And it's like you're setting the stage, you're doing your best to set the stage for a good night's sleep, but you cannot just be like, okay, I need 8 hours, so I'm going to be in bed at 9 o'clock and I will sleep my 8 hours. It doesn't work that way. But what you can control, or what you can work on, is your thoughts surrounding sleep, your sleep environment, and your daily practices and routines that are going to set you up for a good night's sleep. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay. So we're going to get right into strategies here. And I'm not going to overwhelm you today because I could give you about 30 different strategies for improving your sleep. I'm going to keep it super simple today. Okay. The first one we're going to do is we're going to reframe how we think about sleep. And Again, going back to my story and how I struggled, I can tell you that in those 7 years, I stressed about sleep every single day. And some of you may feel that way right now. Some of you may, every single night as you're getting ready to go to bed, you might be like, oh my God, am I going to sleep tonight? Is it going to be a 4-hour night? Is it going to be a 6-hour night? Is it going to be a 7-hour night? Am I going to be staring at the ceiling? You stress about sleep. So I want you to put, if you're on Zoom with me, put a 1 in the chat if that is you. If you are on Facebook, I want you to put a yes, that's me in the comments if you currently stress about sleep. And I'm going to share this little very interesting fact with you. One of the worst things you can do to improve your sleep is stress about sleep. Okay. And it's one of the biggest reasons that men and women struggle with insomnia. And this is one of the things that I learned in my course. And that is why a lot of people who struggle with sleep choose something called cognitive behavioral therapy. And really what it boils down to is reframing how you think about sleep. And I have learned lots of different techniques. I am not a cognitive behavioral therapist, but I did get, I'm going to shorten that to CBT, but I did get some CBT tools that I can help you guys with, so that you, again, the idea is that you start to reframe how you think about sleep. And the first thing I want to do with you today to help you reframe is I want to explain how sleep works, because I think it's going to help you to, I think it's going to minimize the stress. For me, this was a game changer. When I was struggling with insomnia, I remember, this was before I knew about CBT, but I do remember that way back then, I was trying to, again, figure out my sleep, and I was learning about meditation. And I remember reading, this was such a simple thing, but I read somewhere that 20 minutes of meditation was the equivalent of like 2 hours of sleep or something like that. And so when I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would stare at the ceiling, I would meditate. I would meditate for 20 minutes. And I would tell myself, I just got 2 hours of sleep. I'm good now. And just that kind of calmed me down. There's a combination of things that I did to improve my insomnia, and now I sleep great. But that was one crucial thing for me, to start just being able to be like, it's okay. I'm lying here. I'm resting. I'm relaxing. And this is better than me twiddling my thumbs and stressing about the fact that, oh my God, I'm not sleeping. Maybe I'm going to get insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes and inflammation, because that's what I did, because I read too much. But anyways, so what I want to explain to you is, okay, when it comes to sleep, it's not an on switch and an off switch. We're not awake or asleep. There's like phases of consciousness, okay? And there are 5 different phases in sleep. And I'm going to show you some more diagrams to show you this. But there are different stages. So when we're dozing off, we're in the first stage of sleep. And then the body starts to relax, and our heart rate slows down, and our breathing slows. And we move into stage 2, which is like light sleep. And then we move into stage 3 and 4. And this is what is considered deep sleep. And this is a particularly important sort of zone to be in. This is really important for your brain health. This is really important for metabolic health. Anytime I talk about metabolic health, think about energy and think about weight management. And it's also really important for your hormonal function. But then there's another stage of sleep, which you've probably heard of, which is REM, or rapid eye movement. And this one's very unique. It's very different. This is when there's actually a lot of activity in our brain, as much activity as when we are awake, or almost as much. Okay, so there are all these different phases, and we cycle back and forth through these different phases throughout the night. And I'm going to show you guys a couple of diagrams here. Let me just share my screen. Okay, share. Okay, so this here shows you just like what a typical night looks like. Okay, so as you can see, there's the yellow is like when you're awake, and then these are all different stages. So the further down in the purple you go, you're moving into deep sleep. And this blue is when you're in this rapid eye movement, and then back down into deep sleep and back up into rapid eye movement. But as you can see, there are all these different cycles. So this deep sleep where like you are gone, like you don't even know the world exists, it only happens momentarily throughout the night. So if you're like, I hear all the time, oh, I'm a really light sleeper. I'm a really light sleeper. I don't get great sleep. I'm a light sleeper. We're all light sleepers. We all have light sleep, myself included. I used to stress about it all the time. I am over that now. I don't worry about it anymore. Here's another great one that kind of shows another super important thing. So this red section here, this once again is considered to be your deep sleep or stage 3. What you need to understand is that you go kind of in and out of these cycles throughout the night, but it is in the first 4 hours of the night that you get the most deep sleep. Okay. The longer that you sleep for, the shorter this little deep sleep cycle gets, and the longer your rapid eye movement cycle gets. So if you're one of those women who sleeps great for the first 4 to 5 hours of the night, just know that you're getting some really amazing restorative sleep. And what you're missing out on more is this REM sleep, this rapid eye movement sleep. And then this is another diagram that I think is really telling and hopefully will help you reframe just your thoughts about sleep. But this shows what an ideal night of sleep should look like. So N1 is when you're kind of just starting to fall asleep. N2, 51% is light sleep. N3, this is that deep sleep, 21%. And rapid eye movement is 25%. So hopefully that kind of helps you to recognize that, again, you know, if you're a light sleeper, maybe you don't need to stress so much about it. Or if you're only getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep, maybe you don't need to stress so much about it because you're still getting a lot of the benefits from sleep. And one of the things that I learned again in this course is that basically, like, for people who are like, oh, I am an insomniac, like I literally can't sleep, your body would not let you not sleep. So, and this is another sort of technique used by cognitive behavioral therapists and by sleep coaches, is for people who really struggle, is to try and stay awake for as long as you possibly can until your body's like, sorry, you're going to sleep. But what I want you to understand from this, once again, is that sleep happens in cycles. It's normal to go through the different stages repeatedly throughout the night. It is normal to move into light sleep and to be sort of like aware that you're kind of in bed. This is all perfectly normal. And remember that you get your deepest sleep and your most restful sleep in the first half of the night. Okay. And I want you to remember this if you wake up this morning or tomorrow morning or this night at 3 a.m. and you can't sleep anymore. Just remember and tell yourself, I have had already all of my most restful sleep. I've had restorative sleep. Waking up is normal. And again, it's all about reframing sleep, because one of the worst things you can do about sleep is stress about sleep. Okay. Is that helpful? If that's helpful, if you're like, okay, that's going to help me think about sleep in a slightly different way, put a 1 in the comments, either on Zoom or on Facebook. Okay, so we're going to move into another strategy here, and you're not going to love me. I'm not going to lie. So there are sort of like 3 things that regulate our sleep. And the technical terms are process S, which is sleep drive, process C, which is circadian rhythms, and process W, which is wakefulness. And we're going to talk about process S, and we're going to talk about process C, and I'm going to give you 1 tip for each, okay? The first tip that I'm going to give you, and this is your second strategy. So first strategy is reframe your thoughts about sleep. Second strategy is to take a caffeine holiday. And I'm going to explain exactly why you should do that. And I have a fancy diagram to show you as well. Okay, so just so you know, in my program, Perimenopause Body Solutions, I ask all of my clients to take a caffeine holiday for 21 days. And I want to explain to you why this is so important. I think we all know that caffeine, can impact our sleep and keep us awake. We all know that, right? But it's much deeper than that. And one of the things for myself is that when I understand something, when I understand the science and I understand why something is important, I am much more likely to do it. And this stems like when we're talking about resistance to change. So resistance to change is if I'm like, yeah, you need to stop drinking caffeine. And you're like, whatever, Haley, there's no way. I don't want to do it. I don't want to. That's resistance to change. And one of the best things that you can do when you have resistance to change is, like what they say is that most of the time when women experience resistance to change, is because they don't fully understand the benefit of the change. So I'm going to explain the benefit of caffeine to you today, or the benefit of taking a caffeine vacation. Okay. So again, this goes back to Process S. So Process S stands for sleep drive. And one of the things that helps us fall asleep and stay asleep is sleep drive. And it's basically just this biological desire or need that accumulates the longer you stay awake, which goes back to what I was saying about insomniacs earlier. So what you need to understand is that caffeine kills sleep drive. And I'm going to explain to you how this works because it's really interesting. So I'm going to pull up my little handy dandy charts here. So I like visuals, so hopefully you guys like visuals too. All right, so let's go back to our graphs. Okay, and we're going to go to this chart here. Okay, so this is what we're looking at here is something called, so let me explain. So how sleep drive works. So they're still trying to figure out what sleep drive is. But what researchers are believing is that we have this neurotransmitter in our body. It's called adenosine, and it accumulates throughout the day, and that is what drives this is what causes sleep drive. So the more adenosine you accumulate throughout the day, the more tired you get, the more likely you are to fall asleep and go to sleep. Okay. And the way that it works is that this neurotransmitter goes into your brain and it goes into receptors in your brain. Okay. And tells your body to fall asleep, because that's how neurotransmitters and hormones work. They go to these little receptors all over your body, and they tell your body to do certain things. And this neurotransmitter tells your body it's time to go to bed. Now, what happens is that caffeine competes for the receptors. And this is why I love this slide, because it is a great visual, because this is such a hard concept to understand when you're not used to talking about like biology and biochemistry and all that stuff. But think of it as a parking lot. Okay. In your brain, there's a parking lot and there are parking spaces. And adenosine is coming and it's driving and it's trying to like park in these parking spots. Okay. But caffeine comes along and it takes all the spots and it's competing for adenosine. So adenosine can't get in because caffeine's in the way. And that is how caffeine is killing your sleep drive. And now you might be thinking, yeah, but Haley, I only drink coffee at 7 a.m. or I stopped drinking my coffee at 10 a.m. So caffeine does not affect me. Maybe, but maybe not. So here's one more little fact for you to know about caffeine is that we all break down caffeine at our own pace. And some women are genetically from their genetics cannot break down or metabolize caffeine as quickly as others. And it can take up to 12 hours to metabolize caffeine. So if you think about it, if you have your cup of coffee at 10 a.m. and it takes you 12 hours, then for those 12 hours, caffeine is competing with adenosine and it is lowering your sleep drive. Okay? Does that make sense? Did I explain that clearly? Give me a 1 either in the comments on Facebook or on Zoom if that makes sense, and we will move on to my next point. hopefully that helps you guys, and it encourages you to give caffeine that little bit of a break. And it's not like you have to give up caffeine for the rest of your life, but I would certainly say that if you are struggling with sleep, that is one of the things I did. I gave up caffeine when I had insomnia. I still drink coffee, but I make decaf now. I don't drink I very rarely drink caffeinated coffee. I still do it some of the time. But I would say do it for 21 days and see if it has an impact. Just see. I would also add to that alcohol, but we can talk about that another night or another day. Okay, so that explains, again, that was process S, which is sleep drive. And the strategy is to take a caffeine holiday for 21 days to see if it has an impact on your sleep. So we're going to move on to our last strategy, which is a fascinating topic, in my opinion. We're going to be talking about process C, which is circadian clocks. So we have a series of biological clocks in our body that run on a 24-hour cycle. And you may have heard of circadian rhythm. That's like it's a pretty common term in health and wellness. Maybe circadian clock is a new word, but circadian rhythm, most people know. But it's this idea that we are running on a 24-hour cycle. So we have a master clock in our brain. And I'm going to show you the diagram for it because this one's really cool. All right, let's see here. I'm going to show you this one. So this is your brain clock. So this is kind of like your master clock. This is so you can think of all these clocks, all these circadian rhythm clocks as they're helping your body to keep time. So again, they're helping your body to know when it's time to wake up, and they're helping your body to know when it's time to go to sleep. And this is where your brain clock is located. It is right next to your eye, which is why one of the biggest things that influence your ability to go to sleep are both sunlight and darkness. And we're going to talk specifically about this in a second, but I just wanted to show you this because I think it's a really great visual of showing you exactly exactly how close that little clock is to your eyes so that you can understand the impact of light and dark on your sleeping patterns. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back to my notes here. Okay. So again, we have this central master clock in our brain, but then you have peripheral clocks all over your body. So you have like a lung clock, you have a kidney clock, you've got a heart clock, you've got a skin clock, you've got a pancreas clock. You have clocks all over. And again, they're organizing and they're regulating biological functions in your body. So they're deciding like when are things speeding up? They're deciding like when are things slowing down? So just to give you an example, just for instance, our body temperature, right? So our body temperature, you may have noticed, it naturally goes up during the day and it naturally goes down at night. Right? So if you've ever traveled, maybe across different time zones and you're like freezing in the plane, well, it might be because even though it's daytime, your body is still running on nighttime and it's supposed to be cold. And so your body is using all of these circadian clocks and suddenly you're freezing, even though you should be warm because you're maybe transitioning into daytime. But again, your body has not caught up to that yet. That's just one little example. But these circadian clocks, they affect everything, like body temperature, we just talked about, your heart rate, your digestion, how you're absorbing nutrients, how you're metabolizing nutrients. So are you burning fat? Are you burning carbs? How you're releasing hormones. Are you producing them? Have it slowed down? How you're repairing tissue, your appetite, your hunger. Again, all of these different things. Okay. So I'm going to show you guys another cool diagram that shows a little bit how this works. And again, I find put this sort of into context. So let's go over here and I'm going to show you this other one. And this one's really cool. So again, here's that master clock, right? And this master clock, as you can see, this is kind of having a really big impact on melatonin. So you guys know melatonin If you're watching a workshop about sleep, you probably know what melatonin is. If you don't, it is the hormone that helps you to fall asleep. And we're going to look at it. We're going to examine it a little bit closer in about 2-3 minutes here. But as you can see, again, we have like this 24-hour cycle that follows like light and dark, and melatonin should be very low when the sun is out and very high when the moon is out. And then over here, this just shows you all of the different like hormones in our body and sort of the circadian rhythm that they're following. So cortisol, that's your stress hormone. So ideally, it should be high in the morning. It should dip down at night until about 3-4 a.m. and then it starts to come back up again. Leptin is your satiety hormone. And notice how it increases at night. You don't want to be starving at night when you're trying to sleep, right? Insulin, this is another important one here. So insulin goes up typically during the daytime and it slows down during the night. This is an important thing to see here because, a lot of us think that we're burning fat when we're exercising. You're burning a lot of fat when you're sleeping. This is when your body goes into lipolysis. You're not eating, you're fasting, your insulin levels will start to dip. This is a great time right here to burn fat. Same with blood glucose. Insulin, blood glucose kind of go together. Core body temperature, we just talked about. Okay, urine production. This is like, you don't think about it, but again, these circadian rhythms, like I said, you have clocks all over. So your kidney has a clock and it tells you to not need to pee as much at night. And you might be like, no, I pee all the time at night. We could talk about that, but your body should be slowing down urine production at night. This is another huge one right here, growth hormone. Okay. This one I've talked about, I've done workshops on this specific one again. It follows a circadian rhythm. And growth hormone is going to be another one that's going to help you with weight management and fat loss and muscle mass. It peaks at night, not during the day, at night. So, and especially in the first window of your sleep. So getting a good night's sleep is going to help there too. And then finally, ghrelin. Ghrelin is your hunger hormone. So naturally, it's going to be higher during the day and lower at night. So it just kind of shows you like these different biological clocks that our body has. And it just shows you how important it is for our body to kind of stay on that cycle. Because as soon as our circadian clock gets messed up, which it can, this is the problem, is that oftentimes our circadian rhythm gets messed up, especially like night shift workers, right? Or people who stay up and watch Netflix until midnight, or people that do have insomnia. Like it messes with our circadian rhythms. But what we can do is we can encourage the body to get back on track. We can encourage the body to start following our natural circadian rhythm again. And this is why anytime you hear someone talk about sleep or about improving your sleep, you're gonna hear them say, you've got to improve your circadian rhythm. Well, hopefully now you understand why, because all of these different clocks, they're all what we call Zeitgebers. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I only have ever read it. So pronunciation may be completely off there. But essentially, these are like cues that your body has that helps you stay on track with your natural circadian rhythm so that you're waking up when the sun comes up, you're going to bed when the sun goes down and the moon comes up, and it's just keeping you on track. Okay. And some of these different cues, some of them are going to be internal, some of them are going to be external. Light, dark, temperature changes. Again, remember the core body goes down at night. Food and eating patterns, physical activity, stress, social interactions, and hormones, which we just looked at, right? They're all giving your body cues, and you can do things to facilitate the little clocks that are going to help you get like everything back on track. Okay. So there are tons and tons of different cues out there. I want to keep it super simple today. And I'm going to give you the sort of the cue that has the most impact on your ability to fall asleep and get a good night's rest. And I kind of already have I've told you what this is, but light and dark. Light and dark. So the best way to fall asleep at night is to start by giving your body the right cue in the morning. And this is what I tell my clients that are struggling with sleep. One of the first habits that I want them to get into is to get outside as early as possible in the morning. Go for a walk, sit outside with your cup of coffee. I don't care what you do. Get some bright light in your eyes. You can't be inside. It's not enough. You've got to be outside. Don't put on sunglasses. Let the blue light from the sky come into your eye and go to your brain and tell your brain that it's time to wake up. Okay. And again, now that you understand this whole idea of this circadian clock and this circadian rhythm, it likely makes more sense as to why this would help, because you're telling your body, now it's time to wake up. And you need to do that before you can tell your body that it's time to go to sleep. And then obviously in the evening, it's the complete opposite. Now you want to completely avoid bright lights as much as possible, and you want to keep it as dark as possible. Okay, so that means dimming down your household lights. That means avoiding your TV, avoiding your iPad, avoiding your phone. Like if you're sitting in bed, if you spend the last hour of your day sitting in bed, scrolling Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be, you're essentially messing with your circadian clocks. You're messing with the master clock, the one that's trying to keep you on this 24-hour cycle. And I'm going to show you guys one final diagram that kind of will drive this home here. But let's go back over to here, and I will show you this little diagram because this shows so well. So what you need to understand is, once again, so I've already given you a sense that obviously, like, you want as much light in the morning and you want as much darkness at night. But again, the master clock is sort of like the head honcho, but then you have all these little clocks, right? So what should be happening, as I said, is cortisol should be high when it's bright, and then it should start to come down towards the end of the afternoon. By the time you go to bed, it should be really, 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 really low. Melatonin, on the other hand, should be nice and low during the day. And as after you finish dinner, as you're starting to wind down, it comes up, 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 and it helps you fall asleep. So cortisol and melatonin, they work in opposition. And so cortisol has to go down for melatonin to go up, and melatonin has to go down for cortisol to come up. This is where adrenal fatigue, like I said at the beginning, adrenal fatigue can cause insomnia, because women who have dysfunction, adrenal dysfunction, what can happen is the circadian rhythm, the circadian clock of just cortisol can throw everything off. And it can be high at night when it's supposed to be low, and then you can't produce melatonin, and then you can't sleep. And because you can't sleep, then you start to mess up your adrenal axis again, and it just kind of turns into this vicious cycle. But again, coming back to the sun and the dark, that is like the master regulator of the circadian rhythm, and that is why it is the first place that you should start. Okay. All right, we're almost done, ladies. So the last little thing that I want to talk about, the last process, and I'm not going to talk much about it because I'm going to save this for another day. But the last one I said is called process W, which is wakefulness. And this is another factor that influences sleep. And basically what it boils down to is the fight or flight response. If your brain thinks that you are in danger, it's going to tell you that sleeping is a really bad idea. This is, I mean, think about it. This makes sense, right? If you were, a cave woman way back when, and your body sensed danger, you wouldn't want to fall asleep. You'd want to be alert. You'd want to be like on guard to protect yourself. And you have to remember that your brain, although we now live in a very evolved society, your brain is still very, very primal. And the important word here is think. If your brain thinks you're in danger, you're going to have a hard time falling asleep. You don't actually have to be in danger, but if your brain thinks you're in danger, you're going to struggle. And thinking you're in danger, this could be like you're ruminating over a problem, or you're angry about something or someone, or maybe you just had an argument with your partner or your child, your teenager, or maybe you're going through a major life transition, or maybe you're just juggling a lot of decisions or like this massive to-do list. All of these things are going to tell your brain that it's like danger, 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 and it's going to trigger alertness. And this is going to make it very hard to fall asleep. Now, again, what is the solution? Well, the solution is stress management, right? The solution is learning how to calm down the body away from fight or flight and into rest and digest. And that's why we're going to stop there, because it is a massive topic and it's going to be the topic of the next workshop. So this is like a little bit of a series. I'm doing like a whole, I talk a lot about hormones and metabolism when it comes to energy and perimenopause and menopause and weight management. We're kind of like going into a little bit more of a holistic approach for the next couple of weeks, for the next couple of workshops. This was one of them. We talked about sleep today and how it is affecting everything. Next, we're going to talk about stress. I'm also going to do a workshop on gut health. And we're also going to talk about blood work. And I'm going to start to help you understand how you can start to dive into your blood work to start to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together and figure out what is going on with your body. So there you have it. Do you have any questions for me before I sign off for the day? Did you like that? Are you enjoying the fact that we're diving into some like more holistic topics? Let's see here. I fall asleep, no problem, but my rest is disrupted by furnacing. Ah, yes. Have you ever heard of a chill pad or a chili pad? That's what I would get. So that can be a game changer. I hear it like women everywhere going through menopause, having like night sweats and hot flashes, chili pad. I have yet to experience a hot flash, I think. I like, my body is definitely warmer than it ever has been before. And I don't even sleep with covers anymore. And I'm always like, I always have half of my body out. So I feel like, I don't even know what that is. I don't think it's night sweats, but yes, chili pad, look that up. So basically what it is it's a pad that you can slide underneath your top cover or your first slip, and you can regulate the temperature. Like you can decide where you want it, and it will just help to cool down your body. And I've heard a lot of women really praise that. And then you said I'm hot then cold, then hot then cold. There are some, Chantel, I would do some investigating to figure out. I know that there are some that you can kind of play around with the temperature on your phone, so you can kind of like go up and down. That could help. I know hot flashes are like a whole other beast. And then you probably have to kind of deal with hot flashes by themselves as like a separate issue tying into sleep. It definitely is one of those things that is going to be harder to control. Wind, that could help. Jackie said, very helpful. Will it be available to re-listen to? Yes, Jackie. All of my workshops, just so you know, I know that you just recently joined the group, but all of my workshops, they're all right inside the group. So if you go, if you like, what I've been trying to do is a guide section so that you can find them. So you could try that. Also, like, if you're curious, like, just go to the search tool and search, and you'll see, like, I have been doing these workshops now every week for, oh my gosh, like over a year. So there's probably about 60 workshops at this point that you can go and check out on all kinds of different topics. I do have one on hot flashes, by the way, so you could search that up too. And Jillian was saying, what about taking a melatonin as a sleep aid? So there's different opinions on that. Jillian, personally, I love melatonin. And I'm actually doing a lot of research into it right now, because it's also gaining popularity in the health and wellness space as one of the best antioxidants. So stay tuned for more information on melatonin, because it's something that I want to kind of dive into a little bit more. Personally, I microdose with melatonin every single night. I use like a liquid melatonin, and I just do like just a couple of drops, like literally 2 or 3 or 4. And it's like a 50 drop. It's a 50 drop dropper. So it's really a microdose. And again, I started doing this when I was struggling with my sleep way back when. And I had read that just a little bit of melatonin can trigger the body to produce melatonin. So that's why I do like a microdose. But again, when it comes to supplements, it is outside of my scope of practice to make recommendations. All I can do is say, this is what I know, do a little bit of research. For me, I find it really helps. I know some women find that it makes them groggy, and they don't like the feeling of waking up after melatonin. Personally, I get up at 4:45 every single morning, Monday to Friday, and I rarely struggle to get out of bed. So it's not a problem for me. And I'd go with that liquid form, because then you can determine like what the dosage is. You don't have to, like, I think if you take 5 milligrams, then you might feel totally groggy in the morning, but you might find that microdosing helps a little bit for you. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions here. Whoa, oh my goodness, where am I? Okay, 11 comments. Let's just see if I missed anything. Okay. All right, I think that covers it there. And Jillian, that answered that for you. Awesome. Okay, any other questions? We can talk about sleep way more. Like again, this has been something I've been studying now, and I've got lots and lots of tips and tricks, and we can get into some cognitive behavioral therapy techniques and all kinds of stuff to help you guys with your sleep. If you like this workshop, if you found this helpful, if you learned something, if you want to see more of these, can you please do me a favor if you're on Facebook and just, put a comment, just let me know that you enjoyed it, that you learned something, maybe comment what your key takeaway was. And I think that is it for today. I'm going to do the next topic, like I said, is going to be stress. And I'm going to be taking 2 weeks to plan it, because they all take time to plan, as you can imagine. I will come on next week, but I'm going to do a mini episode, like a little bite-sized episode. And I'm going to be introducing you guys to something called resistant starch. Okay, and let me just see here. I have no problem getting to sleep. It's staying asleep. Okay, Jackie, I know we're talking tomorrow. We're going to talk on that, because for me, that tells me a lot about your cortisol. So remember how I was saying how cortisol is supposed to like dip down at night? Well, when you're waking up in the middle of the night, that's potentially a sign that that little circadian clock is off. And so we'll talk about that tomorrow. No, not tomorrow, Saturday. But anyways, I think that's it, ladies. If you have any other questions about sleep, definitely you can reach out to me. You can message me. Just go find me inside the group and message me there. And if you have any topics in particular that you would like me to talk about, another topic I really want to dive into is hysterectomies, and sort of like what's the hormonal aftermath of a hysterectomy. I also want to dive into PCOS, which I've never talked about, all to come in the new year, or we're well into it now. But have a fantastic day. Thank you for joining me today. And I will see you all very soon. Bye.